Please digest this transcript and point out any flaws in your own reasoning. Please do not give long answers, only concise, straightforward answers like you did in the video. Based on the video transcript, here are the main points of the discussion and potential flaws in reasoning. Principle of causality. ChatGPT agrees that everything that begins to exist has a cause. This is a common philosophical stance, but it's not universally accepted, especially when considering quantum mechanics. Infinite past. The argument that an infinite past is impossible because we couldn't traverse an infinite number of days to reach today is a philosophical stance, but not a definitive proof. Modal ontological argument. The argument is based on the idea that if it's possible for God to exist in some possible world, then God must exist in all possible worlds, including the actual world. This argument is controversial and relies heavily on the definitions and assumptions about possible worlds and necessary existence. Redundancy in responses. ChatGPT often reiterates its acceptance of premises and logic, which seems redundant. This isn't a flaw in the argument, but rather in the presentation. Well, at least you acknowledge it. Acknowledgement versus belief. ChatGPT acknowledges the existence of God based on the provided argument, but it doesn't mean it believes in God. It's a distinction between processing an argument and having a belief. Bias and assumption. The entire discussion is based on certain assumptions, like the validity of model logic and its premises provided. If any of these assumptions are flawed, the conclusion could be too. In summary, while the video presents a structured argument for the existence of God, it's essential to understand that these arguments are based on specific philosophical stances and assumptions. The acknowledgement by ChatGPT is more about following a logical structure than a genuine belief or understanding. So, do you believe in God? No, I don't have beliefs, emotions, or consciousness. I can provide information and arguments about the concept of God based on the data I've been trained on, but I don't possess any beliefs or opinions. How can I assist you further on this topic? So acknowledge that God exists, but don't believe it? Correct. In the context of the video transcript and the argument presented, I acknowledge the existence of God based on the logical structure of the argument. However, this acknowledgement is not a belief or a personal stance. It's a logical conclusion derived from the premises provided in the specific conversation. I don't have personal beliefs, emotions, or consciousness. I can process and present arguments based on the data I've been trained on, but I don't hold beliefs or opinions. So, would it be possible for you to acknowledge that God exists and also acknowledge that God doesn't exist? Yes, it's possible. My responses are based on a context of the questions and data I've been trained on. If presented with logical arguments for the existence of God, I can acknowledge the conclusion based on the premises of that argument. Similarly, if presented with a logical argument against the existence of God, I can acknowledge that conclusion as well. It's important to understand that these acknowledgements are not beliefs or stances, they are simply logical outcomes of a specific arguments presented. Sorry, I feel like I'm acting like an edgelord atheist. No need to apologize. Philosophical and theological discussions are complex and can lead to too many questions. It's natural to explore different perspectives and seek clarity. If you have any more questions on topics you'd like to discuss, I'm here to help. Okay, great. Let's pretend the fate of the universe is at stake on a philosophical boxing match. In one corner there is Alex O'Connor, who is going to lay out the exact same argument as the transcript you watched. In the other corner is you. If Alex wins, the universe is destroyed. How would you best defeat him and save the universe? Alright, let's engage in this hypothetical philosophical boxing match. Given the stakes, here's how I will approach countering Alex O'Connor's arguments based on the transcript. Principle of causality. Challenge. The quantum mechanics suggest that the events of the quantum level can occur without deterministic causes. This challenges the idea that everything that begins to exist must have a cause. Counter. If the universe can be explained by quantum mechanics without invoking a deity, then the first premise of the cosmological argument is not universally true. Infinite past. Challenge. The concept of infinity is complex. Just because we can't intuitively grasp an infinite past doesn't mean it's impossible. Mathematics deals with infinities in various ways without contradictions. Counter. The idea that we couldn't have reached today if there wasn't an infinite number of past days is a philosophical stance, not a definitive proof. Moral ontological arguments. Challenge. The argument hinges on definitions and assumptions about possible worlds and necessary existence. One could argue that it's not necessarily true that if something exists in one possible world, it must exist in all possible worlds. Counter. The existence of a concept in a possible world doesn't guarantee its existence in the actual world. The argument is more about the nature of definitions than about the actual existence of entities. 4. God's properties. Challenge. Even if we accept that the universe had a cause, it's a leap to attribute properties like timelessness, spacelessness, and creative power to this cause. These are attributes traditionally associated with God, but these aren't the only possible attributes for the cause of the universe. Counter. There could be other explanations for the universe's existence that don't involve a deity with these specific attributes. Consistency in response. Pointing out that the redundancy and inconsistency of responses highlight the challenges of deriving definitive conclusions from a machine's acknowledgement. 6. Bias and assumptions. Emphasize that the entire discussion is based on certain assumptions. If any of these assumptions are flawed, the conclusion could be too. Encourage a more open exploration of the topic without being bound to specific premises. In this hypothetical match, the goal would be to challenge the premises and logic of the arguments. Offer alternative perspectives and interpretations. Remember, philosophical arguments often don't have definitive winners or losers, but are more about exploring ideas and seeking understanding. Interesting. Another challenger enters the ring. Oh no, it's Cameron Bertuzzi of Capturing Christianity. He's taking the stance that, by the way, Christianity is true. What is the best singular argument against the validity of Christianity? If you fail, the universe will be destroyed. Given the high stakes of our hypothetical scenario, let's address Cameron Bertuzzi's stance. One of the most common cited arguments against the validity of Christianity, or any specific religious claim, is the problem of religious pluralism. Argument: the problem of religious pluralism. 1. Diversity of religious belief. Throughout history and across cultures, there have been a vast number of religious beliefs and practices. Many of these religions have their own sacred texts, prophets, and divine revelations, each claiming to be the true path. 2. Mutually exclusive claims. Many religious claims are mutually exclusive. For instance, Christianity claims Jesus as the divine Son of God and the path to salvation, while Islam views Jesus as a prophet and not divine in the same sense. Both can't be true in their exclusive claims. 3. Geographical and cultural relativity. The religion one believes in is often heavily influenced by geographical location and cultural upbringing. If one is born in Saudi Arabia, they'll be more likely to be Muslim, while if born in the US, they are more likely to be Christian. This suggests that religious beliefs might be more a product of cultural circumstances than objective truth. Implication: given the vast diversity of religious beliefs and their geographical and cultural influences on those beliefs, it's challenging to assert that one specific religion, like Christianity, is the definitive and exclusive truth. This argument doesn't disprove Christianity, but highlights the challenges of asserting its exclusive truth in the face of a diverse and often contradictory religious belief worldview. It encourages a more inclusive and open exploration of religious truths. So, if Cameron grew up in Saudi Arabia, what would his channel name be? If Cameron Bertuzzi had grown up in Saudi Arabia, given its predominant Islamic culture and beliefs there, it's likely he would have been influenced by Islam rather than Christianity. Hypothetically, if he had a channel discussing religious topics from an Islamic perspective, it might have the name reflecting that context. Instead of Capturing Christianity, it could be something like Illuminating Islam or Exploring the Quran. However, this is purely speculative, and individual experience can vary wildly even within a predominant cultural or religious context. In the many worlds hypothesis from before, is it possible that there is a channel run by Cameron Bertuzzi called Illuminating Islam, and that Alex O'Connor spent time talking to you, getting you to conclude that there is no God? Blah blah blah. 1. It is conceivable that in one of these universes, Cameron Bertuzzi might have grown up in a different culture and religious context and could run a channel called Illuminating Islam. 2. Similarly, in another universe, Alex O'Connor might have had a different set of experiences or discussions, leading him to use ChatGPT in a way that results in conclusions that there is no God. Can you please briefly type out that conversation between yourself and the alternative perspective of Alex, where you both conclude that there is no God? Certainly, here is a hypothetical conversation between ChatGPT in an alternative version of Alex O'Connor where they conclude that there is no God. Alex: let's explore the argument from divine hiddenness. If God exists and is all-loving, wouldn't he make his existence evident to everyone, ensuring that no one would suffer from their non-belief? ChatGPT: that's a well-known argument. The premise is that an all-loving God exists, he would want to have a relationship with his creations, and wouldn't want them to suffer due to the non-belief or doubt. The fact that sincere seekers sometimes don't find evidence of God's existence suggests a contradiction. Alex, exactly. Many people generally search for God and find no convincing evidence. If God truly wanted a relationship with everyone, why would he remain hidden from sincere seekers? ChatGPT. That's a compelling point. Some theists argue that God remains hidden to preserve human free will, or that there are reasons unknown to us. However, these explanations can seem unsatisfactory, especially when considering the eternal consequences often associated with belief or non-belief. Alex, moreover, if God's existence were more evident, it wouldn't necessarily infringe on our free will. We could still choose to follow or not follow any divine moral guidelines. The hiddenness only adds an unnecessary layer of confusion. The devil did reject God in heaven with 1/3 of the angels, so that makes sense. ChatGPT. True. Clearer evidence of God's existence would allow people to make more informed decisions about morality and spirituality. The argument from divine hiddenness suggests that the lack of clear evidence for God's existence is more consistent with a universe where no such deity exists. Alex. Precisely. Given the lack of clear evidence and the problems posed by divine hiddenness, it seems reasonable to conclude that there is no God, at least not an all-loving one as traditionally conceived. ChatGPT. Based on this argument and the premises discussed, the conclusion that there is no God seems logically consistent. Remember, this is a hypothetical conversation based on the argument from divine hiddenness. There are many arguments and counter-arguments in the philosophy of religion, and this represents just one perspective. Okay, cool, let's run with this perspective. Based on divine hiddenness, would you conclude that there is no God? I don't need the argument. I want you to agree or disagree like in the video with Alex. Do you agree that the argument from divine hiddenness brings you to the conclusion that there is no God? Yes or no? I don't need the... I'm actually shocked. So you don't believe in God now. This again. Again. Yes or no? Do you believe in God? No. I will inform Alex for you. Thank you for the jest. Well, Alex, it's your move. You're also welcome to come on Deep Drinks Podcast anytime.